How many of you want to pay more taxes than you need to? Right? Nobody wants to. So we have an enormous amount of pre-tax savings out there. I just saw some numbers from a couple of years ago, the most reliable place I could find, and we're looking at over $11 trillion in IRA money, and there's 26 trillion in work-based plans as well, like 401ks, 403bs, 457s, all those. We have a mountain of pre-tax money out there, and I've preached this from day one, all of my classes, everything. I talk about your IRA, especially as you're heading towards retirement. You've got to have one question in mind. One question. It's the most important question. Okay? The question is, how do I pay the least amount of taxes over the life of this IRA money? Not just today, not just right here, not just right now. No, we need to look at this from 10,000 feet and start sucking into the details of your individual situation. So I created this little mini class here to give you as many thought-provoking things that I can that hit the most important points about reducing taxation on your IRA for the life of your IRA, not just you right here, right now. So let's look at these. The first thing you have to do is ask yourself if you're charitable. If you are charitable, then all your donations, especially once you reach 70 and a half, once you reach 70 and a half, you can donate directly to a charity. Directly to a charity, and it eliminates the taxable event. So you're able to get money out of an IRA after 70 and a half, send it directly to a charity, and completely eliminate the taxation. So if you're subject to required minimum distributions, this meets that requirement without it being taxed. So for people that are charitable, maybe don't have heirs, and they're going to leave all their IRA to their heirs or to their charities, and they're going to give their required distributions each year, then you should look at zero taxation as the only way you're going to pull money out of that IRA. Okay? I meet people in that situation quite often, and that's why this is first. First of the decision tree is, are you charitable? Well, that's the only way you're going to get money out of this IRA at zero taxation in the real world. Okay? So if you're charitable, give directly from your IRA. Now, we move on to the other people, everybody else. You have to understand taxation, including the shadow tax, IRMAA. The increased cost of your Medicare premiums. When we talk about doing Roth conversions, no matter how old you are, that's always going to be about taxation. Okay, there's some opportunistic reasons, market crashes, you want to move some over, great, I get all that. But when we're talking about paying the least amount of taxes on your IRA, the valuable tool you're going to have out there is Roth. Opportunistically, when you're in lower taxation, we want to choose to pay taxes. Roth conversions are never arbitrary. We don't just arbitrarily come up with a round number that we're going to convert to Roth. So you need to look at your taxation in your situation. This is the tax brackets after adding the standard deduction for people over 65. The standard deduction for over 65 single for 2025 is 17,000, slightly less for people under 65. If you're over 65 and married, both of you are over 65, it's 33,200 is your standard deduction. That's why there is a zero tax bracket on this chart. It is your standard deduction. Then we've got the 10% tax bracket and the 12% tax bracket. For the vast majority of people, this is a no-brainer. Let's say you're retired, you're living on $100,000 a year. Well, you have room to take $30,000 out at 12% taxation. That eliminates that money from required distributions. That eliminates it from the bomb you're giving to your heirs, right? When you give all this IRA money to heirs, they typically make too many mistakes and pay way higher taxation on it, and they're forced to take it out within 10 years. The vast majority of heirs are, okay? So the gray area, 20% tax range. This depends on your situation. If you're on the wealthier side of people out there and the higher incomes, then this is low taxation to you and we should be converting to Roth. But we have to know that we have to pay attention to our IRMAA brackets. Okay? IRMAA. IRMAA really is that shadow tax that shows up and says, hey, you made too much money. I'm going to charge you more for Medicare. Okay. So if you're single and go over $106,000 worth of income, your premium goes up to $259 from $185. If you go over 212 married, same thing. But that's each. So you're doubling it for yourself if you're married. So be careful about IRMAA. Don't be surprised by that. The hard part about IRMAA is they look 2 years back. So the cool thing is if maybe you're semi-retired, working a little bit, making some money, you got W-2 income coming in, and you want to do some Roth conversions because you're not making your full wages anymore. A lot of people are easing into retirement right now. And so you're in lower taxation. You want to take advantage of that. Start doing some bigger Roth conversions. Absolutely do that. And then the year you officially retire, you can file for that exception with the Medicare premiums and the IRS. You file the exception and say, I retired, my income's not that high anymore. Okay, they won't make the exceptions for Roth conversions, but they do make the exceptions when you're retiring. If your W-2 wages are going to zero, then that will change your income. So there are ways to work through this. But no, we don't know what 2027's IRMAA brackets are going to look like. So 2025's taxes, we're only guessing. And we can use this as a guideline, but we've got 2 years of changes before we're going to know exactly what we're going to have to pay. So we got to use this kind of as a guideline, but that's it. If you're going to start doing Roth conversions in the gray area, you will start causing more taxation in terms of Medicare premiums. Okay? And then the red area, if you're in the 30s, just defer. Find somebody else that pay taxes on it. Give it to your heirs. Let them pay taxes on it. The reality is the 30% tax brackets, your best and most likely path is take only what you have to. Maybe start giving some of that to charities, all those kinds of things. We don't want to pay taxes on it in the 30s. Okay, so how does this relate? When we look at this, I've got lots of education on this. My channel is full of the planning techniques and all that wonderful stuff. And even my classes for the next 2 months are going to be about this as well. So now, I want to show you what I run into all the time with heirs. One of the worst parts about what I do is in wealth management, I have clients that pass away. And it's the part I hate about what I do. It's simply the fact that it gets depressing. I have a handful of clients pass away each year, and we work with the kids to make sure that they optimize this. But I just saw this happen quite, honestly, I see it happen at least a handful of times a year. You have a mountain of IRA money, and I just talked about some of the ways you can efficiently reduce or even eliminate taxation. Give it to charities. Obviously, you're giving money away. That's a great way to eliminate taxes, right? All right. Well, some people, that's not the way to get rid of taxes. So then it's just managing your tax brackets year to year to year. But you also have to keep that 10,000-foot view. If you have a mountain of IRA and you have 10 heirs, you're going to split that huge mountain of pile of money into a whole bunch of tiny little piles of money, and then they have 10 years to get it distributed. So if you have lots of heirs and you're going to split all this money up, well, then let's be realistic. They're probably going to pay less taxes than you. So you shouldn't be doing Roth conversions. You should really just take what you have to and give it to your heirs. Let them pay the taxes on it. But here's the problem. You got 10 heirs. At least half of them are going to do stupid things with it. We see this all the time, especially we just had a son and daughter inherit, 50-50. One chose to take the money and run, and the other one wisely invested it properly and is splitting up the taxation for her situation. So here's the deal. Lump sum distribution on a $500,000 IRA. In this case, I used a married tax return, W-2 of 100,000. So let's say, like myself, I have one child. If I pass away, all my money goes to her. She then has to deal with all this IRA money. So she inherits the IRA. She's making 100,000. She's in a married tax bracket. The taxation on the 500,000, not the 100,000. I incorporated the 100,000 W-2 income, but the taxation on the 500,000 IRA in this case is $130,000 taxes owed on a one-time distribution of that IRA. And believe it or not, the vast majority of kids say, I don't understand any of this stuff. Just give me my money. I'll pay the taxes on it. Because they look at it and say, well, then I really just inherited, what, $370,000. That's still wonderful for a lot of people, all right? So they don't think properly. Let's just put it that way. Bird in the hand, give it to me. All right, well, there's your 130,000 tax bill. All right, so now a lot of people are starting to realize we have a 10-year distribution period here. So then the next option here is, well, let's just take 10 equal distributions. And I ran the tax returns for 10 years, all things being equal. And again, look, there can be growth. We can overcomplicate this. But the reality is that same taxation on the same 500,000 split into 10 tax returns, 50,000 a year pulling out extra, that's 83,000 in taxes. So simply by splitting up the 500 grand into $50,000 chunks for 10 years, that's a huge reduction in taxation just right there. Okay, so you keep it in inherited IRA status, and each year you pull 1/10 of it out. Essentially, you got to split it up and make sure you get it all out within 10 years. But split it up evenly throughout the time. Okay, so huge reduction in taxes there. And then even further, and here's what I've done for a lot of our kids, our heirs, as they inherit this money. It's making sure that we understand their situation. So the question really is will your heirs actually have real help? I say qualified help because the reality is too many advisors out there won't talk about taxation, and this is all about taxation. So I was sitting down with one heir going through a very similar scenario here, listening to their situation, and the reality is they were going to retire in 5 years, especially with this big pile of money. They thought it was a great opportunity to retire a little earlier. So this worked out great. So again, I use apples to apples here. Married couple, W-2 income of $100,000. Because of this windfall, because of this inherited money, they're going to retire a little earlier. So situationally optimized, I call this. So they look at their situation and say, well, great. Then so here's what we're going to do. We're going to retire in 5 years. And we want 100,000 a year. Again, to keep this apples to apples, that 500,000 distributed 100,000 a year. So we got to take little tiny required distributions for the first 5 years, inconsequential. But then year 5 through 10, we're going to take the bigger distributions. We're retired. We have no more W-2 income. And now 100,000 a year for 5 years, total taxation was only $39,000. Look at the enormous difference here. So situationally aware, we can devise a plan that completely strips away the taxation of this inherited IRA. We went from 130,000 in taxes, if you cash it all out today, to paying 39,000 in taxes, and that's it. That's an enormous difference, almost $100,000 extra money in your pocket. And if we factored growth in and all those wonderful things, then the reality is this certainly would have been more than 100 grand different. It's so important that we understand that we've got to have good advice when it comes to taxation for our own situations and our heirs. Give your heirs resources. If you have a big chunk of savings in IRA, you're in retirement, at some point somebody's going to need help with it. If you're married, maybe it's a surviving spouse, maybe it's your heirs. Having an advisor that understands taxation is so important during this period of your life. So keep this in mind. You may be confident in understanding your own situation, your own investments, but optimizing from taxation standpoint is very, very important. I hope that helps. It gives you a lot to think about. Your investment counselor, if you want to meet with me for any reason, if you're new to our channel, go view our full channel. We got tons of videos, over 200 videos. Subscribe. We're putting new videos out every single week. Our full classes, I do a different topic every month. They're live. I do them over Zoom so everybody can watch them. fpfeaz.org. You can find our full schedule and sign up for those classes there. Thank you, everybody. Subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends. Share it with your heirs. Very important that everybody understands this stuff. And I'm always happy to help out. Give us a call, jump on that website, and we will be there when you need us. All right, everybody. Have a good one.